Welcome guys, welcome to my channel. I'm gonna go ahead and get started on a new video. And today we're gonna be speaking about territorial demons. I haven't discussed this with you, but I feel that I basically delve into spiritually gifted quite a bit. And so I want to go a little further. Now, territorial spirits are not random entities. They don't just drift through realms looking for activity. They are tied to places the way certain memories are tied to childhood homes. They're tied deeply, historically, and with a claim they believe is legitimate. Every region, every city, every neighborhood holds a spiritual history, whether spoken or unspoken, remembered or forgotten, honored or violated. There is always a spiritual record. And in that record, certain powers assert rulership. When a chosen one walks into these regions, the atmosphere shifts. See, you're not just a visitor, you're someone who carries assignment. You carry presence and backing. So your entrance becomes a disruption. Now, forces that have been undisturbed for generations suddenly sense a new order. They sense that someone who cannot be misled, manipulated, or domesticated has stepped onto the ground. Territorial spirits operate through longevity, the kind of longevity and long-standing residency that makes them feel like they belong more than people do. And they feed on patterns, unspoken agreements, generational trauma, regional belief systems, cycles of silence, and the spiritual sleepiness of communities. They guard old wounds, old sins, old permissions, old agreements that happened before your great grandparents were born. They protect these openings because disruption threatens their survival. And so when a spiritually gifted individual arrives, their discernment begins to register spiritual tension that the average person would ignore. And you may feel heaviness in a place without a reason. You may also feel watched without a face around you. You may even sense resistance the moment you decide to pray, speak, worship, or focus. This is how territorial spirits test whether you recognize the assignment on your life or whether you'll fold into the environment like everyone else. Now, when the spiritually gifted arrive, they may not necessarily have elevated to the level of chosen, having gone through so much. And the chosen may not have elevated to the level of a sage. I'm going to speak about that next. The spiritually gifted that fold into the environment like everyone else, they also will operate like everyone else if they don't wake up into their gifts, right? Now, I'll say the chosen and anyone spiritually gifted are not assigned to blend in. That's where we get it wrong. We should not be blending in. We don't need to know the latest gossip. God will reveal it to us. So we don't need to know everything that's going on. What will affect us, we'll learn. But we're not to arrive and get upset when we're not invited to the party or everyone leaves for lunch, right? Or everyone after work goes out, right? Together and do something, right? That's not for you. And if you've done nothing to them and you're not invited, they may think you're standoffish, and that's fine. But you are there and you are assigned to confront atmospheres with their presence alone. Your presence alone. You're not to do it through force, but through spiritual authority, because that's your assignment. Now, these spirits are often rooted in human agreements of the past. In some regions, oppression is normalized because of an ancient power that still sits in the background, directing the emotional climate of the people. In other areas, chaos is normalized because something thrives off instability and funnels it into the decisions and desires of the community. Territorial spirits create patterns that look like culture, but they're really bondage disguised as attraction. And it's also disguised as tradition. Now companies have something called onboarding, or they'll have orientation. But what they're also looking for is whether or not you can adapt to the culture. Will you sit off to yourself? Will you interact with the others? They're looking to see who would blend in. Now, the spiritually gifted disrupt without announcing anything. Your very arrival breaks that rhythm, that pattern, the way in which they do things, their culture, and that these forces rely on. You stand in spaces that were never meant to receive someone with your level of awareness, with your spiritual density, or your ancestral backing. Some of these territorial powers have not encountered someone like you in maybe centuries. Now, they push back because you are a sign that someone has been sent to reclaim what was forfeited, neglected, or spiritually looted. And although you may be assigned there, there is a purpose. You may not be there necessarily to make adjustments, to change the atmosphere. So you have to discern that. And I'm going to get into that as well. These spirits watch. They watch you the moment you enter their domain. And so they test boundaries by stirring up sudden emotional agitation, distractions, confusion, fatigue, or strange interactions with people. Now, what they'll do, oftentimes, you'll get someone that'll get with you and attach themselves. And you really don't want it. And it seems like they're following you everywhere you go. They're calling you, you exchange numbers, they're texting you, right? And you say, oh, well, at least I have someone I know. But you have to watch how that person moves as well, right? Now, they will assess whether you understand that you carry permission from the Most High to stand on ground that has long been held hostage. And so when chosen individuals enter a region, they bring an unseen court with them, elders, warriors, watchers, and divine backing. This is why your presence alone can trigger reactions in strangers and unexpected resistance in systems, or sudden clarity in people who have been spiritually numb for years. Your presence can also awaken someone else who is spiritually gifted but not as mature in their walk. So your entrance introduces an alternative order, and anything that relies on secrecy or spiritual dullness feels threatened. And the last thing they need for you to acquire is influence. Territorial spirits do not only linger in physical spaces, they attach themselves to emotional climates. Neighborhoods where despair dominates will often have spiritual rulers that reinforce that despair through subtle influences, mindsets, maintaining cycles, and weakening hope. It's going into an impoverished area of a place. And every every other environment around this one little place can be thriving, but that one place does not. And you get the same type of people that gather there, that migrate there. And some may say, well, they had to go there because of their circumstances. Correct. But once they get there, the goal is to weaken their hope in order for them to maintain the cycle and develop the mindset to stay there. See, cities marked by ambition without purpose often have powers that distort vision, pushing people into endless striving without fulfillment. You get the drug pushers. There's no purpose. It's just money funneling in, and they spend it as fast as they get it, right? Or you may have individuals and they're working at low wage jobs. And it appears that they never can make enough to save to get out. It's like once they land there, they're stuck. It's almost as if their address follows them everywhere. Now, regions marked by violence often have spiritual overseers that feed on bloodshed and keep anger simmering like a pilot flame waiting to ignite. Those chosen or spiritually gifted, they carry a presence that rewrites the spiritual atmosphere of a place simply by standing in it. And you are not moved by the climate is moved by you once you awaken to who you are. You can enter a place if you know who you are, and your finances limits your opportunities and choices. But you don't develop the mindset, and neither will you lose hope. And there will eventually become an opportunity where you can move away from that environment. It was actually a stepping stone for you, right? Or your children. So you carry a resonance that challenges everything that's feeding off that environment, because you won't feed off of the environment unless you become hopeless and develop the mindset. Now, this is why spiritually gifted ones often feel spiritually heavy, emotionally reactive, or suddenly introspective when entering certain areas. You are being overwhelmed and you are reading the region. And so your spirit is detecting the agreements that have been made there, the history hidden under the surface, the battles that shaped the people before you ever arrive. There is always a culture that is set. It doesn't change. Either you indoctrinate or you somehow navigate it wisely and you can be successful, or you move on. And in that detection of you, your presence becomes a declaration. Something new has entered this place, and the old order cannot continue uninterrupted. And territorial spirits will resist. That's when you start being monitored. You'll find someone that'll come in and try to be your best friend and tell you everything about everyone but themselves. See, but they cannot outrank divine assignment, and they cannot override ancestral approval. That's why the spirits need to see if you know who you are. And if you do know who you are you standing with spiritual authority? Are you confident? Are you faithful? Oftentimes we don't know who we are. So when we get in places, we start running our mouths, we say everything we see, we start complaining, and we are supposed to be observant. Our presence alone sets the tone for us. We don't have to speak. And so they cannot silence someone who has been sent as a carrier of spiritual correction. You correct spiritually by your presence. So you don't have to speak on everything you see. You use that wisdom to navigate the terrain. And when chosen individuals or spiritually gifted individuals learn to stand firm without cowering down, the region begins to crack open. And so that stagnant atmosphere will begin to shift. And old spiritual tenets will lose their confidence. And people who were spiritually asleep begin to awaken without knowing why. And it doesn't mean that they're awakening to their gifts. They just may be awakening to the frequency, but they're not gifted. See, your presence is not casual. It's a spiritual announcement that the land is being revisited, reevaluated, and reclaimed. So they're watching you close because it's something about you. And whenever a spiritually gifted individual steps into a territory, the unseen world will tremble, because the one thing territorial spirits fear is someone who remembers who sent them. And that comes from training, wisdom, discernment. When we speak about territorial spirits, we are speaking about more than the entities occupying the space. We are speaking about ancient intelligences that attach themselves to human patterns, environmental conditions, emotional climates, and generational agreements. So when you enter a space, no matter what questions they ask you, you don't have to run your mouth. Your presence speaks for you spiritually. But if you're not trained, you don't hold spiritual authority, you believe it's something you need to say. And most of the time you don't, because your presence is going to make people tell on themselves. It's going to make people confide in you that you have no dealings with. You don't even eat lunch with. They don't even have your phone number. And so they embed themselves into the culture of a region until the people cannot differentiate between what is their spirit and what has been whispered into their consciousness. And the spiritually gifted, when they arrive, they become the ones who disturb this silent ownership. Every place has a spiritual record. Some places hold peace because the ancestors who walked the land honored righteousness, honored truth, and honored the Most High. Other regions, they hold residue from violence, betrayal, broken covenants, greed, or long-standing unrepentance. Territorial spirits do not create these records, but they feed on them. So they settle into whatever wounds or permissions a region carries and guard those wounds like a vault. And once they anchor themselves, they begin shaping the emotional and spiritual climate of the people and the environment. When a chosen one or spiritually gifted one enters, something in the atmosphere begins to react. And not because the gifted is entering with aggression, but because their presence, it carries a spiritual authority that threatens the long-standing agreements those spirits rely on. And you need to learn how to hold your peace. If they don't invite you to lunch, fine. If they do, have a good time, right? But it's no big deal to you. And see, your arrival is like a key being inserted into a lock that has not been touched for generations. And the region recognizes the scent or the fragrance of someone that is not bound by its already familiar patterns or culture. So it recognizes someone who carries the memory, right? And when it means carrying the memory, means backed by your lineage, your ancestors. It's almost like your blood can speak to you, your DNA. And see, that predates the stronghold sitting on the land because your lineage has already dealt with what you walked into, or else God would not have allowed it. But the problem is, the challenge is for you is understanding if God sent me here, I can handle it, but wisely and with discernment. So it recognizes someone who can hear beyond all the confusion that blinds everyone else. Territorial spirits assess the gifted before the gifted speak a word, and they watch how you carry yourself. They observe your silence. They examine the weight of your presence. They test to see whether your spirit is awake or merely gifted but unaware. And if you are awake, the environment will begin responding to you in ways that feel strange. People may become reactive without reason. They get agitated when you even walk up. Someone says, could you train this individual? And you show up and it's like they complain throughout the training session. Or you move into a location based on your current finances and you happen to move in a building where the dealers and problem child stand right there in front of your building. It's like emotions might rise unpredictably. You can't figure it out. You may have had a plan before you accepted the job, before you moved into a neighborhood, before you merged with a family, and then you may feel sudden heaviness without a source. It feels like you're suffocating, like something's not right in your spirit. And so these are not signs of you being powerless. These are the signs that the region, the environment, the community, the people are adjusting to the arrival of someone who cannot be easily influenced. Many chosen individuals think they are experiencing personal struggles when they are actually encountering territorial resistance. And silence and distance is our medicine and solution. That's our strategy. You don't give everyone your Instagram to go through your pictures or your Facebook. You resist that. You resist being on text when gossip goes back and forth through the text. See, the region is reading you and you are reading it, or at least you should be. You may need to go to lunch with them a couple of times, maybe even go out, maybe even talk to one or two people. And then once you get a feel of what the culture is and you need to back off, you can just back off because your sensitivity is going to measure those agreements that have shaped the people before you. And your spiritual imprint is exposing fractures the region or the community worked hard to keep hidden. And your presence is already unsettling the forces that relied on being unchallenged. And see, territorial spirits operate through consistency. They do not need chaos every day. They only need the atmosphere to remain predictable and stable for them to feed. If despair rules a region, they maintain despair through subtle emotional pulls. If conflict saturates a region, they keep conflict simmering through whispers of offense and mistrust. If ambition without purpose drives the people, they fan that ambition until the region becomes a place where people chase success but lose their soul along the way. So they are not powerful because they are forceful. They are powerful because they are patient, strategic, and deeply tied to the emotional economy of a place. The gifted disrupt this without warning. Your presence, the chosen can disrupt with this without trying, right? So your presence will introduce a different spiritual temperature, right? So you carry an inner freedom that challenges the bondage others have normalized. You don't accept and do what others do. They'll say we're having a party and you are to buy tickets and say the tickets are all $100 a piece. And they expect for you to spend $10 on a table. By 10 tickets per table, that's $1,000. Now you have to decide, are you going to do it or are you going to take care of your bills and your babies? So you decide, I'm taking care of my family. I can't go to that. I can't afford that. And you wonder how everyone else is going. But you know what? They are in bondage. So they don't know that you can even refuse to do it. So they look at you that you didn't go? No, I didn't go. Oh, you didn't know about it? Because they're trying to figure out, how did you not go? That's an example of you exercising your own authority, right? While you're in that place. And the spirits assigned to it senses this. The land senses this. Even the people sense it. Though they may not understand why they feel exposed, they awaken like, oh my gosh, this person, you don't do that? No, I never did it. They become intimidated. It's something about this person we need to find out. Or they become drawn to you and your strength. And see, you bring an energy that does not match the region's historic climate. And so you introduce an alternative possibility simply by being who you are. You're not trying to offend anyone, right? But you are walking in your autonomy. And see, a chosen one never enters a territory alone. You walk surrounded by ancestral witnesses, divine authorities, and spiritual guardians who outrank the powers that's sitting on that land. And this is why the region reacts the moment you step into it. You are not a visitor. You are a spiritual announcement. You represent correction, reclaiming, healing, realignment, justice, revelation, and even exposure. I had an office, corner office with windows. And so my boss came in and he said, wow, you decorated your desk. And I'm looking at him, what is he talking about? And what I learned, I began to look at other people's desks. And of course, you got people with pictures and plants and all of that. But I finally asked, what are you talking about? He said, no, you buy really nice stuff for your desk. Everyone else just gets whatever is here other than pictures. I said, oh, and I left it. I just thought that was weird. But what it showed me, it should have, but I wasn't aware. He was letting me know he was watching everything down to my iPad. And territorial spirits thrive in regions where no one questions their presence. So you may come and be like, wow, I didn't know it was like this here. You go home to your family and you're like, that's crazy. Did you know this was going on? But the chosen cannot walk anywhere without stirring questions, right? You are beginning to have eye-opening experiences where you begin to question and they are questioning you. They have questions concerning you. And see, you are forced into awareness because the most high place placed a sensitivity in you that reads the environment like scripture. So you sense the brokenness in a place long before you understand even the geography. You detect the sorrow that soaked into the soil generations ago. That's just an example. And you also can discern the spiritual agreements or the culture that was made without your ancestors' consent. They developed their own culture. And in a culture, there's an agreement. This is how it's going to go. Social bonding, social understanding, social cohesiveness. Because you pick up the emotional residue of betrayals that shape the culture of the people. You can have someone sit next to you and tell you everything that's wrong with the place and who walks by and does what, or you move in a building, you meet someone and they're telling you about everyone else. And you pick up on that. You pick up on that emotion and you recognize what is shaping the culture of a place or a people. Now, this is part of your assignment. See, you cannot heal what you cannot feel, and you cannot reclaim what you cannot sense. Territorial spirits fear exposure more than confrontation. Your voice threatens them only when you know who you are. Your silence threatens them when your silence is rooted in awareness. If you're not as talkative, you can sit and have lunch. You can be in a meeting. You can participate, but you don't have unnecessary small talk. You'll listen. You may smile, even giggle a little. But your presence threatens them because your presence carries a lineage they cannot deceive. Now, as an individual, they don't know that, but the spirits that operate in them does. And territorial powers thrive in environments where no one remembers their spiritual identity. But the chosen are the ones who walk into forgotten regions, carrying ancient approval, which is called culture. That's the way things are done. And see, your spirit remember the keys that the land has not seen in centuries. And that is why the region trembles when you arrive. The gifted must understand that territorial resistance is not personal, it is positional. You are stepping onto ground someone else claimed long before you were even born, before you were even thought of, before your arrival. But their claim was based on human sin, generational pain, community agreements, and spiritual neglect. Your claim is based on divine assignment. No territorial power can override someone who was sent. So they can distract you, they can delay you, they can even intimidate you, but they cannot overtake someone with divine origin. When you feel that sudden confusion or agitation in a place, you are not being attacked. You are being informed. That's the difference. It will change your entire attitude. You don't have to, you walk in and you're like, oh my goodness, oh, it's not clean here. Oh, this person is dressed inappropriately or whatever, right? And even if someone says something to you or don't want to train you or they expose you or your children and things you don't want, you're not being attacked. You are being informed. And once you are informed, you can strategize. See, your spirit is reading the temperature, and the temperature is reacting to your presence, and everything around you begins recalibrating because alternative orders are never welcomed by forces that rely on stagnation, on things remaining the same. That's why there are some hoods, some ghettos, some poverty-stricken environments. Unless someone comes in with a bulldozer and begin to gentrify, you can leave and come back in 20 years. You see the same people doing the same thing, just a different generation. And they know everything about everyone else, and they've gone nowhere. The gifted bring movement where the environment depended on stillness or stagnation. They don't mean for anyone, if you go to poverty stricken areas, when they stay there, they barely finish high school, right? Very few go away to college and remain there. You bring truth where the region depended on silence by your presence. You don't have to run your mouth, complain, and write up all these different things and complaints. You don't have to. You can't change the culture. You cannot change the atmosphere. You have to decide how you're going to strategize and navigate in it or prepare to walk through it and out. And you completed an assignment, right? You bring exposure where the environment or community or a people depended on secrecy. In the hood, you don't snitch. And if you are part of a fraternal order, you don't snitch. You don't go against the code. And this is why chosen individuals will often feel spiritually awake in some places and spiritually suffocated in others. Some regions welcome you because the ancestors of that land called for someone like you a long time ago. Other regions resist you because the forces that's occupying the land know that your arrival marks the beginning of their eviction. This person doesn't seem to fit. Why did they move here? They don't look like they belong here, and they get upset with you. Your spirit knows the difference even when your mind does not. Understand this single truth. Territorial spirits cannot withstand a gifted one who knows why they are present. They can withstand someone who doubts themselves. They can withstand someone who is unaware of their spiritual rank. But they cannot withstand someone who stands firm in the awareness that their steps were ordered. You do not walk into a territory casually. You walk in as someone whose presence rewrites spiritual climate. And this is the essence of your assignments. Wherever you go, the land must awaken. Hidden pain rises to the surface. Buried truth shakes itself loose. People begin to see clearly. The atmosphere begins to vibrate differently. And the region becomes unsettled because a gifted one has arrived and nothing spiritually stagnant can remain unchallenged. And how are these spirits assigned? How is it that they select certain areas, regions? How they manipulate cultural patterns and why the gifted are spiritually engineered to confront them. See, territorial spirits are not free floating forces. They attach to specific places because of spiritual permissions that were given over time. When repeated, human actions create emotional resonance. Spirits settle there. There's no change. Everyone is in agreement. No one doesn't seem to be put off by it. And a region saturated with betrayal creates an energy signature that invites certain powers. See, a region that is marked by long-term suppression invites forces that thrive on hopelessness, meaning that they understand there's nothing ever they can do. Wherever they park, they can't leave, and no one else and nowhere else will accept them. So these entities become guardians of dysfunction. They do not simply observe, they become architects of emotional climates that shape people. The gifted disrupt these climates because their spirit does not bend. You're not going to do what you don't want to do. So from childhood, gifted individuals feel like outsiders in places that are dominated by territorial control. So your emotions do not blend and your spirit does not bend. Your thoughts do not conform. Your intuition rejects what everyone else accepts as normal. You'll be in a place, they got to be kidding me. No one's saying anything? Yes, they're not saying anything because that is normal. That's their culture. And this is not rebellion. This is your recognition of it. You become aware, and your spirit refuses to give agreement to a climate that contradicts your integrity. So you don't have to speak it. You can just live it in a place. Everyone else they're going out and they doing their thing weekends. They come back and tell what each other was doing and all the details. It doesn't matter. You don't have to speak about it. You see it, right? Your behavior shows you are not in agreement. It's almost like it goes over your head. You see it, but you don't buy into it. You don't open yourself up to it. Because territorial spirits monitor the gifted. Because you carry the ability to awaken people whose consciousness has been shaped by that environment. People will come in a place one way, and before you know it, they take on the spirit of the place. They can be holy. They can be spiritual. They can be happily married, and it all changes because the environment is not going to allow you to show them up. Why are you doing that? We don't work like that. We cut corners. And if you hand that in, that's going to make us look bad. So you have to do it. And then the pressure is on. So you have to think. You have to think, right? And so when you speak truth, even casually, it breaks spiritual ceilings. And when you show compassion, It interrupts generational hardness. When you walk in integrity, it destabilizes powers that's built on deception. When you pray, the region shifts. When you simply breathe with awareness, the oppressive energy begins to lose its grip on land. The chosen carry ancestral reinforcement that territorial spirits fear. You are not a lone soul wandering the earth. You are a continuation of assignments your lineage could not complete. So the forces tied to the land know this. You walk with warriors behind you. You walk with watchers beside you. You walk with guardians covering you. And nothing about your journey is accidental. The territory you enter is the territory your ancestors prayed someone would confront. Territorial spirits resist because you carry a vibration they cannot distort. Most people become influenced by the region within months. They adopt the emotional language, the spiritual numbness, the cultural patterns. The chosen remains spiritually foreign, no matter how long they stay. You never fully acclimate to dysfunction. You never fully surrender your awareness. You never fully lose your sense of divine identity. This frustrates territorial powers because your very existence disrupts their ownership. Your presence calls the land to accountability. You become the spiritual attorney that is walking into a courtroom where ancient agreements are waiting to be challenged. You carry the authority to question. And that's why they look at you like, you actually said that? You asked her that? What did she say? What did he say? Oh my goodness, and you didn't do that? And you look at them like, no, I didn't have to do that. Well, you did? And they're like, because you carry the authority to question what has not been questioned for generations. And territorial spirits know that once a chosen one awakens in a region, the countdown towards spiritual liberation has begun. They cannot silence you because your spirit speaks even when your mouth is closed. The deeper truth is that the gifted do not fight territorial spirits because they outrank them. There is no contest. There is only recognition. When you know who you are, the territory becomes the one trying to survive your presence, not the other way around. The key is to stand in your authority and not let what's outside of you get inside of you. Your assignment is to stand, observe, listen, remain aware, carry truth, and walk with the understanding that your footsteps disturb the ancient patterns that is sitting on the land. It ain't say nothing about cussing somebody out, telling somebody off, telling them you know what you know. You are not there to adapt because you're becoming them. You are here to transform them. They're not here to transform you, right? So territorial spirits do not begin with the present moment that you arrive. Their presence is rooted in what the land remembers long after people forget. Every region carries the imprint of ancient decisions, forgotten vows, partnerships formed in desperation, betrayals that soaked into the soil, and spiritual permissions that are granted by generations who do not understand the consequences. These forces stand on these old agreements like legal documents, believing the territory belongs to them because no one has challenged their claim in centuries. So it's like, it's my domain. No, I've been here for centuries. So you're not supposed to come here. You're supposed to get up out of here or you adjust, right? So when a gifted one arrives, the land itself notices the new frequency. You don't carry the same agreements. You step in with divine authorization. And now the land understands that it is no longer uncontested. A region is not just a physical place. It is an emotional field. It is a spiritual climate. It is a psychological tone that shapes the instincts of the people who live within it. Every area has a flavor and a pull that influences behavior without being spoken aloud. Territorial spirits manipulate this atmosphere until people believe the emotional patterns they carry are simply personality or culture. See, but the gifted individuals have a different sensory wiring, and we discussed that, right? With the neuromelanin. And you feel the weight of a region that others ignore. You detect what the community has normalized, and a place can appear peaceful on the surface. but you can sense the tension. That is your intelligence. You were designed to read atmospheres the way a scholar can read ancient texts. Territorial spirits cannot hide when you enter because your spirit interprets the emotional residue embedded in the land. An awakened chosen becomes the conscience of the territory simply by being present. You don't have to say much. You don't have to isolate yourself and go have lunch or go spend some time with people, go to the cookout, but you don't let what's going on outside of you get in you. And so territory spirits is testing you. They will test you, not through dramatic encounters, but through subtle atmospheric pressure. So they'll stir up confusion to see whether you lose focus. They amplify exhaustion to see whether you fold. They send emotional turbulence through people around you to measure your stability. And when you start going off, they got you. And none of this is because they are powerful. It is because your presence threatens their longevity. And so you must understand that spiritual pressure is their measurement. The territory is simply asking, do you know who you are? Because if you're arguing with me and you outrank me, do you really recognize the authority you carry? Do you understand why you were sent here? When the chosen remains grounded despite the pressure, the territory begins to shift. Guys, I did not know that. It becomes clear that old patterns cannot continue with the same ease. And the region starts to respond to your presence, even if you speak no words. A chosen one who stands firm destabilizes long-standing powers that depended on silence and compliance. So every place has wounds that remain unspoken because acknowledging them would unravel the false comfort the people have already built. So territorial spirits guard these wounds. They use them as doorways. That's how they got in. So they keep ancient pain alive. There was never no healing by reintroducing the same cycles through new generations. They didn't cleanse the place. They didn't seek out a shaman or a priest or a pastor or prayer to walk and sense what's going on. A healer. People think they are dealing with modern issues, but they are actually wrestling with historical spirits that thrive on the repeated emotional states of the community. You can read the newspaper or you will listen and eventually you see who all was dealing with things working there or living there. Chosen individuals carry an inner light that exposes these generational wounds without attempting to. We offend people with our light because it shows what they had in the dark. So that's very agitating to them. Like, who do you think you are? So when you enter a place, the land begins remembering truths it was forced to forget. So this remembrance can cause discomfort, agitation, sudden clarity, or even confrontation among the people. Your presence acts as a spiritual spotlight, revealing what the territory has kept buried. You don't have to gossip. You don't have to be with the in crowd, because where the gifted walk, forgotten wounds rise because healing becomes possible. But they don't know that. They don't know. They believe your presence is ruining everything, whether it's in a family, a community, an organization, an institution, and they don't realize they awaken to old wounds because it's time for them to heal. Healing is possible. And some people will become drawn to you without reasons, right? So others will feel threatened by your existence. Systems observe you even when you are silent. So it's always good to be on your A game, be on your guard, because energies shift and dormant conflicts will surface. This reaction is not about your personality. It is about your spiritual rank. Territorial spirits stir the environment because your presence interrupts their patterns. They try to influence the emotions of people around you to create distraction or tension with you. The stronger the pushback, the clearer your assignment becomes, the more resistance they give. See, because the chosen must not internalize what they are seeing in others. Everything happening around you is a response to what you carry, not who you are socially. And territorial spirits fear this in you because you do not walk with isolated authority. Your steps are backed by generations of prayers and sacrifices and spiritual victories and uncompleted assignments. When you walk into a place, the forces there do not see one person, they see the accumulated history of a lineage sent to correct what was broken. A chosen one's ancestry is a silent army that speaks without sound. Territorial spirits do not fear people who see with their eyes, they fear people who see with their spirit. You perceive the spiritual geography of a region the moment your feet touch the ground, the moment you walk in the door. And this gives you an advantage that territorial powers cannot override. They can hide who they are from someone who feels the truth running under the surface. The gifted can navigate the unseen territory with ease because their inner compass is untouched by deception, and they can outrank someone sent by divine instruction. And you are not sent there to adapt to a reason, to compromise. You were there to transform it, reveal it, heal it, and reclaim what spiritual swatters claimed. Your presence is the beginning of the shift. Thank you for visiting my channel. Stay covered, stay conscious, stay undefeated. I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.